Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, taking a deeper dive into this Michigan Penn State matchup and want to talk about a few keys for the Michigan Wolverines to head on the road and beat a Penn State at home. That phenomenal defense. This is one of the best teams in the country. These are two of the best teams in the country. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys and especially the Michigan fans. You guys know this is my team. I love talking about them. The amount of support y'all show, it really does mean a lot. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, let me know your keys to the game in the comment section. I have 6, 3 on offense, 3 on defense. Would love to hear from you guys as well. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to start with this Michigan defense going up against the Penn State offense that, in terms of points per game, really solid. I mean, top 10 in the country in terms of yards per play. That number dips down a lot. This Penn State offense is methodical. They don't hit a ton of explosive plays, but they're methodical. They run the ball solid, and they take care of the football as well. Those are some of the things that Penn State does well. What can Michigan do to make this Penn State offense a little uncomfortable on the road? And it first starts with impacting Drew Aller at the quarterback position. We know Drew coming out of high school, 5-star talent, a phenomenal arm, but he's a young quarterback, and he's really struggled under pressure this year. You take a look at the numbers. Drew Aller, he's completing 70% of his balls when he's kept clean in the pocket. When there is pressure manufactured in his face, that number drops all the way down to 38%. He's a talented quarterback, and he has a lot of juice in that arm, but when he is off his spot, that is when he's at his worst. Can Michigan figure out ways to manufacture pressure on Drew Aller? That's probably one of the biggest storylines in this game. Now, you might mention, how does Michigan do that? Penn State has a phenomenal offensive line, but where they're probably weakest is on the inside, right? You take a look at the offensive line for Penn State, 2 extremely solid tackles. Olu Fashanu probably going to go top 10 in the NFL draft. Combined, the offensive tackles have only given up 12 pressures on the year. On the inside, the guards and tackles, 42 pressures. Where can Michigan get this pass rush going? Yeah, we have great edge rushers, but they're going to have their hands full with really good tackles. We also have really good guys on the inside to get after Drew. That's where they got to win. I mean, Chris Jenkins, Mason Grant, Kenneth Grant, those guys are going to have massive games. I think that's where Penn State on the offensive line is weakest. And we have some of the better interior defensive linemen, specifically in the pass rush department in the country. I think this is a spot where Michigan can really get some pressure. And I wouldn't even close out the ideas to sending some backers in those A and B gaps. I mean, this is a unit that struggles to pick up blitzes on the inside of that offensive line. Michigan, I expect them to really hammer that inside of the offensive line because, again, 42 pressures combined given up between the guards and the centers. The offensive tackles are tough, but on the inside, I think Michigan can really take advantage. The last one that I've noticed is Penn State really struggles to hit the explosive play. And the avenue for Penn State to beat this Michigan team is play on their terms. And what do their terms look like? Running the football, controlling the time of possession, not turning the football over, and kind of slowing this game up. And when you look up in the fourth quarter, it's a 3-point game either way. That's how Penn State wants this one to go. For me, if I'm Michigan, you take a look at Drew Aller pushing the ball down the field. He hasn't been great. He's 8 of 27, a 29% completion percentage, pushing the ball 20-plus yards down the field. That is easily where he's worse. Now, he has a massive arm, but the accuracy has been a problem down the field. And I would also probably argue that, and Penn State fans probably would agree, that the Penn State wide receivers are not very scary. I mean, Keandre Lambert-Smith is solid. I wouldn't say he's Jahan Dotson. I think Dante Cephas has been playing okay, but he's not a top-end Power 5 wide receiver. If I'm Michigan, I'm squeezing down. I'm putting some safeties kind of in those shallow zones and making and asking Penn State to say, hey, can you beat us over the top? And if they can, I mean, it'll be a good game. But from the film that you've watched and the numbers that you look at, Penn State hasn't really shown the ability to attack that deeper third and hit the explosive play. They are 121st in explosive play percentages. They're just not an explosive offense. And if I'm Michigan, I'm not allowing them to march the football down the field methodically. I'm going to make them try to beat us down the field. And if they can, again, good on them. They haven't shown on the film or in the numbers that they can really do that. So those are the 3 things that I'm looking for Michigan on the defensive side of the ball to impact this Penn State offense. Now, This is what took me a while. When I was prepping this out, how can Michigan's offense get going against the Penn State defense that has been absolutely elite? I mean, the number one rushing defense in the country. They force, 2.3 turnovers per game. That's number one in the country. NFL talent all over the field. Manny Diaz has done a phenomenal job coaching up this defense. There are a few things that I would like to see Michigan do in terms of maybe getting some traction against this Penn State defense. And it starts with getting JJ loose in the run game. This is something that we've talked about a lot. JJ McCarthy, not many people recognize it because he doesn't do it that often, especially this year because he's such a good pocket passer. JJ McCarthy, Michigan fans know, can absolutely use his legs. Now, have we needed to use JJ McCarthy's legs throughout the first half of the season? Absolutely not. I think a lot of Michigan fans would say, yeah, we don't need to be running JJ McCarthy against Nebraska or Minnesota. We don't need him taking those hits. Against this caliber of defense in this big of a game, this is probably one of those games that you want to get JJ McCarthy loose in the run game because this is a hard defense to run against. Again, only allowing 1.8 yards per carry. Another thing that you notice on film, Penn State is not the biggest defense, especially along the lines of scrimmage, but they are really, really aggressive, and they go downhill really quickly. And on some of those read options, if those defensive ends and linebackers want to crash down, that is where you want JJ McCarthy really getting loose. So one of those things to help this run game get going against Penn State, which is an elite defense, I'd like to see JJ McCarthy get a little loose in the run game. Again, haven't put a ton of it on film this year because we hadn't had to. This is one of those games. You got a couple games circled, right? Penn State, Ohio State, college football playoffs, Big Ten championship. Those are the games where you want to kind of have your full offensive playbook. And one of the parts of that playbook is using JJ McCarthy on the ground. The second thing that I think is maybe a little bit of a weakness for Penn State is yards after the catch. I mean, this Penn State secondary is very good. They have a very good pass rush. What has given Penn State problems at times, Ohio State at times took advantage of this, is forcing these guys in the secondary to tackle in space. I'm not saying they're bad at tackling in space, but what's the best way to get after this Penn State defense? You have to get the ball out quick. They have elite pass rushers on both the inside and on the edge. We have some guys who have some juice with the football in their hands. I mean, Roman Wilson is probably the fastest player on the field. Cornelius Johnson has made massive strides in terms of creating after the catch. A guy like Samaj Morgan or Frederick, we have guys on the outside. I would include Donovan Edwards into this scenario that when you get the ball to them in space, that's when they're most dangerous. And you look at Penn State, they've only given up 1,500 passing yards on the year. 900 of those yards have been yards after the catch. And so you look at that, and that's where Penn State maybe has some cracks in the armor, if you will, on the defensive side of the ball, is tackling guys in space. I expect Michigan to use those playmakers. I think this is the best crop of pass catchers that we've had in the last couple of years, probably. Get the ball to them in space and let them go make plays for this offense. Last one, and this is a little bit of a low-hanging fruit here, but it's going to be important in this game, especially being on the road. Can't beat yourself. Part of what makes this Penn State defense so special is they turn the ball over at a high clip and they create negative plays. I mean, they have a laundry list of guys who are elite off the edge blitzing. Linebackers like Abdul Carter can certainly get after it. They want to create negative plays. They live in opponents' backfields. It's going to be very important for Michigan to make sure we're not taking those negative plays. You don't want to find yourself in 3rd and long against this Penn State defense. In the second one, and this kind of goes without saying, when you want to go be the top 10 team on the road, you can't turn the ball over. Michigan's been really good in this department besides in that Bowling Green game. This is a Penn State defense that, again, forcing 2.3 turnovers per game. You look at the success. They have the number 1 turnover margin in the entire country. If you can just keep it even, that's what you want. A clean football game where we're not taking negative plays, not turning the ball over. It's going to be huge. That is what this Penn State defense feasts off of. They want to shoot gaps. They want to be aggressive. They want to force you into making mistakes. Michigan can't make those mistakes, can't beat themselves. And if they do these 6 things, and again, it's not going to be easy because this is a very good Penn State team. I really do feel confident about this Michigan game. Very excited about it. We'll be back to kind of recap this game post-game. Appreciate y'all rocking with the boys. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And we'll talk to y'all later.